Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the R&D Podcast. I am your host, Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about intimacy and how to build trust with your partner in your relationship. Let's get into it.
So, what are your thoughts when it comes to building intimacy in the relationship? I mean, there's so many levels to this, right? Intimacy could be just hugging, kissing, getting away. Maybe it's, sexual chemistry. There's so many things when you're actually building on these different types of things, right?
Yeah, and I know that I know with this season we talked about sort of injecting more of like what the Bible says about it.
Yeah.
So I did look up what is being said about it, because some people might say, oh, that's something that you have when you're dating. That's not really something that you can maintain. It's not realistic to maintain it when you're married. I've heard a lot of different people say stuff like this. But it says here, rejoice in the wife of your youth. So in other words, that woman that you married when you were younger, right?
Okay.
Let her charms and tender embrace satisfy you. Let her love alone fill you with delight. I think what ends up happening is that maybe as a woman you might have started off very giddy in love, very flirty with your partner, very touchy, affectionate. Maybe your love language is like making him cookies and like pot pies or whatever it might be. And then as time goes on, right, all of a sudden maybe he comes home grumpy, is the attitude, you start to get in fights, and the years weigh on and you lose that right? Love. And then I think that could also happen to him, right? And the next thing you know, you're just two ghost ships like passing in the night, like two almost like roommates, right?
Right.
And the relationship can become very stale. But even if you are a spiritual person or a person of faith, like really looking at that and going, what does the Bible say about that? Because I am surprised to see we're supposed to maintain that in our marriages.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's important that, you continue to date your person, right? We hear this so much. And I think that oftentimes, we break down our person because they keep leaving their darn shoes at the entrance because they left their there.
The trash bag,
the trash bag, and they didn't put the liner down, and they don't help out, and they don't do this. And it's always about the things that they don't do. And I really do believe that, resentment and gratitude can't live in the same room, right? So if you can get into a state of gratitude of like, you know what, but he's a great man, but he still is a provider, but he still wakes up, but he still does this. And I think if you can get into that state of gratitude, instead of breaking him down because he didn't pick up the shoes, I think that would definitely move your relationship in the right direction. And also, like I've said this in the past, it's kind of like, relationships and friendships and whatever is kind of like a game of tennis. Sometimes you got to serve the ball a few times and to get the game going, and for him to know that you do appreciate him, but you don't like that he leaves the shoes in the front of the entrance. And sometimes, you got to pick and choose your battles too. It's like if that's the worst thing he's going to do, it's actually not a bad thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, building intimacy, in my opinion, is really just like maybe hugging on him, maybe kissing him. Sometimes, what I've heard on certain statistics is that after a person's been together for a certain amount of time, like those passionate kisses go out the window. Have you heard that before?
I have.
Like where it's like, once you're married for so long, you're no longer
kissing.
Yeah, like when you're first dating, it's like a lot of passionate kissing, and then all of a sudden when you're married for quite some time, it's just pecking, little kisses. It's not passionate. And so I think that if you can get back to a place of what was that like when you first started dating and getting back to that passion, I think that would be, it would solve not all problems, but it could solve some problems.
I think the two, really getting to a place of really addressing the resentments.
Yeah.
I think that often a relationship can go cold or stale because there's these hidden resentments that maybe you're not even aware that you're holding. And I think that if you can sit down with your partner and not have this like long drawn out conversation, but to definitely, address some of the little resentments and to say, look, I want to get back to where I feel super giddy to be around you. But I feel that like as a woman, because this is very normal, that women, we kind of suck it up. Like he says something, we're like, oh, like it's so rude, it hurts our feelings, but we don't cry about it. We don't tell him anything because we're like, I don't want to make a bad situation worse. There's a real common thread in this season 4. And that is, we are, I think, inherently afraid of ruffled feathers. And we're walking on eggshells to a degree. But I think if you can go to him and say, look, when you come home and you're pissed off and you're throwing your work bag and you're like, oh, like dinners aren't ready or whatever the attitude is, I've been sucking that up for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, or whatever. But like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So in other words, if he's behaving badly, then, or, you know, making you feel some kind of way, in that moment, getting better to be honest about your experience of him and to be like, oh, really, you're upset again? Like, okay, so do you need a break or what do you need?
Yeah.
And the point I'm trying to make is sometimes to create intimacy, you got to fix something else and not just put a Band-Aid on it by jumping on his lap and being romantic, which is helpful and he'll probably love it. But I think as a woman, what makes you tick is that you got to solve some of this stuff in order to feel loving and feel better and more affectionate towards him.
Yeah, but I also think that depending on the history of their relationships too, right?
Yeah.
If there's ever, you know, there might be resentment because maybe you forgave him for a couple of things that he's done, or maybe you forgave her for some of the demises that she's done. And I think that a lot of the time, you know, the intimacy can go away because you maybe don't trust your person anymore. Maybe you don't believe what they have to say. Maybe now when they go to work, because there was that one work person that maybe that you thought they were having an affair. And so now that builds like animosity and distance. And so I think that it's really hard for you to really like love on someone when you feel that they're maybe out to get you, because there's no way that you can be not watching your back and feeling so close with this person when you feel like you're kind of sleeping with the enemy in a way, right? So how do you feel that, how do you build on intimacy when you have resentment because of history that you guys have both lived? And so I think that, you know, I think if I was to give anybody a message is, I understand that there's this fine line for me when I hear forgiving and forgetting, right? If you're going to stay there, then it's, if you're going to forgive, and I get some people have a hard time with forgetting. I'm not saying for you to just erase it from your mind, but if you're going to have to grave dig and go back to a moment in time and continue to go back and relive moments that were unpleasant, you're never going to stride forward. You're always going to stride back because you're grave digging. And I think a lot of the time, you know, the reason why there's lack of intimacy is because we feel that this person, you know, lied to us. And how am I going to just give him my heart again? I've got to protect myself.
I think
because we don't want to give up our heart.
Yeah, and I think one way to look at it is this: whether you're a guy watching this and you're like, oh my God, I want to understand my wife better, or you're a woman. Here's an analogy that I'm going to give you that I use, and that is, if you have the family dog, I'm not calling the husband or the wife a dog for that matter, but you have the family dog. You had him since a puppy or whatever. You feel like, oh God, the dog would never bite the baby. The dog would never bite me. Like, it would never. You wrestle with the dog. You pet the dog. You go swimming with it. You take it with you in the RV. All these things, right, with the dog. But one day that dog bit you. One day that dog just literally attacked you. And maybe did it 2 times, 3 times over the course of 3 years. Once a year, but for 3 years. Whatever it may be, it could have been twice in 8 years. Whatever the number is, the dog still bit you. So now, are you going to still let that dog jump all over you on the couch? Are you going to be all up in the dog's face? Are you going to bring your baby near the dog? Like, are you going to really
I'm going to euthanize that mother after she asked me.
Are you going to really fully have your guard down with that dog? You might still love dogs, and you might still love that dog,
right?
And want to pet it and love it and bathe it, but chances are you can be like, no, I probably shouldn't do that because I might trigger him. Or you never know, like there's just something in you that's a little more afraid and
more
not
reserved
and reserved and holding back, where you're not going to want to do that. So I think as humans, we have that about us. We have sense.
Oh yeah.
And so like if your partner has betrayed you, or your partner's words and actions don't match, it's so difficult to navigate that and to really feel safe to open up and just like melt in his arms and be playful with him.
I know. Be like that love story that you watch on the movies. And we all know that, you know, that's unrealistic. And when you're doing life with someone, it's very much more unrealistic. But I think that if you're in a place where you have forgiven, if you have tried to forget, and you're going to move in the right direction. Look, this lifetime is really, really a short time. And at the end of the day, you know, we think that tomorrow we're going to wake up and it's a sure thing. We don't know that. And so you have to really take into consideration the time that you are given with these people and making the best out of that, right? And then what do you have to do in order to build intimacy? Okay, well, maybe you go on that getaway weekend. Maybe you take that one vacation you always wanted to take. Maybe you put it on a credit card. Heck, you only die once. And so I think that it's very important for you to look at the person that you're with and say, why did I marry this person? Why am I with this person? What is it about this person that I love? And I think if you can go back to ground zero of the reason why you married this person, why you decided to make this life-changing decision, making a life-changing decision, and then coming from a state of gratitude instead of resentment because of what he didn't do, because of maybe what he did do, maybe a couple of years ago with whoever that was, but you stayed there. I mean, there's no reason why you should live under, hostile environment because now you want to teach him a lesson. And if that's the case, then, you got to go. But I think it's really easy. And I know that, I said this in a previous episode, and I had a DM where they're like, it's not just about, the sheets and the candles. But sometimes, if your marriage isn't that broken, it could be a matter of changing the direction of the bed. It could be a matter of putting some beautiful candle lights. It could be about putting some nice, R&B. It could be about all these little things, or just taking a little 3-day weekend. But you have to be the one to gauge your relationship and where are you at and where you want to be. And if you think that this is not a long haul thing, then
and I think remembering that intimacy isn't just what you do in the bedroom. Intimacy is being on the same page.
So true.
Intimacy is being at a crowded party and looking across the room and like just knowing
that's your person.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or just a little look that they give you. You just know there's something about them. Inside jokes. There's so many different things that are like intimacy.
I agree. So
being
true.
able to just like touch, the side of their face or their hand for a second, they can feel something. Like there's a lot of little things that we could each do, right? You and your partner, that creates intimacy. And so often true. We don't even like touch or whatever, and then you just go the whole day and don't even realize it and stuff like that until like now you're being intimate. But there's a whole road and a path that leads up to that sends these love signals that are different from that. I'll give you an example. I grew up where it wasn't an affectionate environment anywhere. Yeah. And so hugs wasn't really a thing, right? And so I understood though through college and psychology and learning and going to school that like, oh, okay, like people actually hug a lot, like in their families.
This is weird.
And so when I became a mother, I recognized really quickly like I don't have that, like I don't have it, but I wanted my kids to have it. And so when they were old enough to understand, I just say, okay, I just want you to know, mommy didn't grow up with a bunch of hugs, but I want you to grow up with a bunch of hugs. So if you go by the end of the day and mommy hasn't hugged you, you need to come bug me and get that hug, cute. Right? In other words, I want to give you hugs every day, but I'm going to forget because it doesn't come naturally. But come get them when you need them. Okay?
I love that.
And so then my oldest, when he was little, he'd come sometimes 11 o'clock at night, mommy. And I'm like, what? He's like, the hug. And then he gave me the hug and I gave him a hug. And so I feel like something so simple like that worked. My one is 20-something years old. He still comes and he makes sure that I got a hug. So what I'm trying to communicate is that was a door that swung both ways. It was like, I'm not just saying, I really want this. I'm also saying, come and get it if I don't give it to you. I get busy. I get in my own head. I forget. You have a need, come get that from me. I'm willing to give it to you. Come get it.
I of course, I love that you're saying that. And of course, I know we're probably getting ready to wrap up and it sounds so good. So here's my $1 million question to you.
Okay.
So there are, relationships, marriages, right, where you hear it. The woman's just, she's got the chastity belt on for 3-4 months. Yeah. So if you're saying, come get it, what is he supposed to do?
If intimacy for him is only that
for most men, you have to understand that men think differently than we do. Because for us, we love the hugs, the kisses, and all that.
But that's
I'm
what
not
we're talking
about.
And
I'm not a man, by no means necessary. I'm a female. But I'm just saying, most men's love language is connecting in that regard. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way that you can intimately connect with someone. So let's just say, on a hypothetical, and this is not to put you on the hot spot.
No, but I just think, look, I think like
how
I
does
said,
that happen?
no, but I'm saying that's how it happens, because if the woman, like I said 5 minutes ago or whatever, like if she addresses the things that she has resentments for, right? If she's holding resentments, she has to get those off the plate first before she can open up like she once did to him, you know?
I agree.
Because if you don't handle those resentments or you don't handle those, you're going to have blocks. So when he comes, sniffing around, you're like, get the heck away from me, you know?
Yeah.
And so a lot of women operate in that way. I don't understand it.
I don't
but
either.
That's a real thing in a 50% of the women. But I will say that but then those same women will turn around with a guy that's interested in them that is brand new and be like, oh my God, and have all these like wild ideas of what they're going to do with them. And so I find that whole thing very like a paradox. So that's why with me, with the intimacy, I'm like, I'm going to focus more on what leads up to unlocking that box, of intimacy, because I think jumping straight into the bed or jumping straight into like affection, when you haven't even resolved these things, you're not going to receive it well.
I agree.
And you're not going to be as having that door go both ways like I described, because you're going to be like, stuff,
leave me alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on the first season or even maybe second season, I talked about how, I knew someone particularly that tricked, her husband at the time to buy her an SUV. And I remember, they were going 6 months of a dry spell. And that's a long time for a man, by the way, or for a woman, depending on, whatever she's doing. And so, we talk about this, that the men's love language usually is to connect in that regard with their partner.
But not only the love language, by the way, I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah.
Just on a scientific, physiological, biological thing, you as a woman might have these urges a couple times a month, that are really, really strong. They have that daily, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And so take your most interesting, weird, like, why do I feel like this? I really want to, be with my husband. Count how many times that happens to you in a month. Just count it. Make a little note somewhere in your phone of, it's happening right now and I hope I see him or whatever. Now, take that, multiply it by 10, and add it for 1 day. That is what they're dealing with.
On a daily.
And so I think
and imagine
that
a man, and imagine like you're just saying that, right? So you're speaking on, scientific and, and all these things. And imagine that this person's withholding that for 6 months.
Yep.
That's a very long time. And then he's like, okay, but promise me.
And here's the irony of it. The amount of men that are with women like that, that actually remain faithful is so incredible compared to the ones that are married to women that give it to them every day, multiple times a day. Those dudes are cheating everywhere. So you're not going to win. You're not going to win. So I'm not saying, give it up because it's the right thing to do as a wife. Go to your Bible for that, because it's going to tell you to do that.
Sure it is.
It's going to tell you to do that. But get to the truth of why you feel like you're shushing him away like a dirty dog. Solve that
problem,
so that way you can kind of open up again, because like Delia said, he might have done a million things, but you stayed, you're still there. So if you're there, you got to fix it. That's on you now to work that out, get rid of those resentments somehow, some way.
Yes.
Obviously, try to sleep with one eye half open or whatever.
But I mean, it could be, what you're saying though, it could be, for us women, we're always, our hormones are changing all the time. Our cycles are everywhere. I say our cycles make us psycho. And so you might have a hormonal imbalance. I'm not a doctor. That could be one of the reasons.
That's
besides
true. It could
the fact,
medical.
it could be. It besides the fact that maybe you don't trust him, or maybe things have happened, and maybe there's things that you need to fix. But at the end of the day, going back to the Bible, it is a very important thing. I mean, I always say, if you have bad sex, you have bad glue. If you have bad glue, you have a bad marriage. And so you have to go back to, what that looks like for you. And I'm not saying that, that's the most important thing, but it is up there. If you're together with someone, that is one of the most important things. That is what separates you from, having a relationship with anybody else. It's like the intimate part of, staying together, or like.
But solving the intimacy outside of the bedroom and really honing in on what is the value of the marriage in that way, because you will reach an age when you grow old, and that sex part isn't part of it anymore, and you got 20 something years left with that person, and it's like, how do you show intimacy without that?
Right.
So I feel like it's a great exercise to say, hey, we're gonna tap into our intimacy without that. And see how you can nurture that whole thing. And then really, once you lock and load that, I feel like the rest just happens. I feel like if you can master intimacy outside of the bedroom, you are going to unlock amazing things in the bedroom. And you don't even got to worry about whether it's dirty sheets or clean sheets or whatever that may be, because because so often everybody's running to the bedroom and they're not addressing
the issues,
the actual
major issue,
intimacy, you know, that allows you to open up over there. So
true.
I feel like if you can just get to work on what's holding you back and what's shushing him away, and also, you know, hopefully your partner is receptive to even hearing it.
So true.
Because I'm convinced that there's some men that do a bunch of bad things on purpose because they just hope you leave, man.
Oh my gosh, that's another episode. I don't know, man. TBC. TBC, baby. That's all I gotta say. Oh my gosh. Yes.
All right, guys. See you next time.
See you next time. Cheers.